Welcome to another episode of Canopy Practice Success. Today on the podcast, I'm excited to welcome Alicia Katz Pollock. Alicia is a nationally recognized QuickBooks expert, educator, and community leader who's helped thousands of accounting professionals rethink how they use technology, support clients, and build confidence in their work. She's known for making complex accounting topics approachable, practical, and empowering. Alicia is also the host of the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast and the author of several books. Today, we'll talk about Alicia's journey, the evolution of accounting education, and what firm leaders need to understand about tech, training, and client experience in a rapidly changing profession. Alicia, so nice to have you.
Thanks for having me, Casey. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I would love you to actually give a quick synopsis of your experience, just because we mentioned a podcast, we mentioned some books. Yeah, give us a quick background of all of these things that you have produced, because you are quite an expert in several things that I really want to dive into today.
Sure, absolutely. So I am known as the quote-unquote queen of QuickBooks, but it's not just a name. It's an actual title that I earned at QuickBooks Connect.
Fun.
In their tips and tricks riff-off. The first year, my team won, and then the second year, they pitted the three of us, of my team members, against each other, and I came out on top. So I have a literal crown. So I'm literally the queen of QuickBooks.
I love it.
Which fits perfectly because my company's name is Royalwise, and our logo is an owl wearing a crown. So it all just kind of dovetails and fits together.
That is so fun.
Yeah. And so what we do at Royalwise is QuickBooks training and also Apple training as well. We're a husband and wife run company, and my husband does the Apple and I do the QuickBooks. And I have a master's in teaching, and instead of teaching 7th grade English, this was my jam. And so I've been a computer geek since an early age, and I just started developing this QuickBooks curriculum, and people started coming to it in droves. And so we've been developing deeper and deeper, more complex content. So we have over 75 different QuickBooks classes. I write books on Amazon. So I've got 3 or 4 books on Amazon. I write this giant 600-page click-by-click textbook for a company called QuestivaConsultants.com that's used in schools. And
look at all those dog ears.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually all these dog ears. That's all of the changes that I have to make to the book because of the new interface.
I honestly was going to ask. I mean, a printed resource on a software cannot be easy to maintain.
No, it's definitely turns into a labor of love because the updates are constant.
Yeah.
But that's why people flock to Royalwise, is because I'm staying on top of the content and in the process right now of doing what we call the Great QBO Refresh, where I'm literally re-recording all of our content in order from the beginning with the basics, and then going deeper and deeper and deeper into the.
Why? Is QuickBooks not doing this? Like, are you doing it differently?
Yeah, the training that Intuit offers is really well expressed, but very basic. It's very fundamentals. It's here's how to make an invoice. Here are the buttons to click.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Very
what the
technical.
certification is like, okay, you know what buttons to click. But what I bring to the table is real world case studies, best practices, expert tips and tricks from the trenches. And also because I've been an Uber geek my whole life, I'm interested in like all the little efficiency strategies. So when I teach a course, you could watch one of Intuit's 10-minute videos, but I'll talk for 2.5 hours about the same topic.
I love it. Okay, so talk to us about how you found those real world in the trenches examples.
Yeah. As I mentioned, I started as an English as a 7th grade English teacher, but have been a computer geek my whole life. And so my jam was being Microsoft Office certified with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Apple certified. I was in the Apple Consultants Network. And so for a long time, I was actually going to homes and offices and helping people use their computers and use their technology. And that was where Royalwise started in the very beginning. And that's going back like 20 years. And then people started asking me about QuickBooks Online. Oh, well, if you can help me with my Excel, can you help me with my QuickBooks? And at first, my answer was, well, I'm a QuickBooks user. I was using it to run my companies. I have several different companies along the way. And so I knew it from the user perspective. And I found that I enjoyed those support calls more than anything else. And, at first I was like, well, okay, I'm not a bookkeeper. but I started learning the bookkeeping, and then I started checking my work and having other people look at my work to make sure that what I was doing was good. And they actually were like, Alicia, this is rock solid. Like, you have a knack for this. And then when QuickBooks Online came out, there was just more and more and more interest in the QuickBooks side. And in 2011, we started Royalwise. My husband had his own web hosting company, and I was doing all of this other support. And we joined, this is before we got married, but we got married and then we joined forces and formed Royalwise. And at first it was just whoever was first available would go take the call. You know, I was doing Apple, I was doing Microsoft, you know, all the things, but then the QuickBooks calls just started coming in, and we decided that Jamie would be the Apple guy and Alicia would be the QuickBooks gal, and that's where things really started exploding.
What a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
I love it. What are some of the most common mistakes you saw, and what are some of the greatest hacks or efficiencies that you, like you kind of said, like just finding things? I would love to hear both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, well, both roads lead to the banking feed, really.
Yeah.
That the banking feed is the hub of QuickBooks Online, and it's the place where you go to either enter your data or to verify your data. And QuickBooks is not easy to use. And even though, and Intuit dropped that marketing line, like for a while they were saying so easy that anybody can do it. And they discovered that that was not true. And they've stopped, but that's still the impression that people are left with. So business owners will fire up their QuickBooks Online and they'll start categorizing transactions, and it becomes kind of willy-nilly. And a lot of the time they'll duplicate their income because they don't realize that their invoice and their payments and their sales receipts need to go to undeposited funds to match the banking feed. So they're taking the income and then they're entering the income from the banking feed and winding up with duplicated revenue and then paying more taxes than they need to pay.
No.
Yeah.
Like this happened commonly.
Common. Very, very
Happens?
happens still.
Okay.
Because undeposited funds is a concept that a business owner doesn't know about. So that's where all of us as pro advisors and bookkeepers and cast teams really come into play, because we have to teach people to put your payments in undeposited funds and then either match them to the banking feed or actually create a deposit to combine the individual payments into your lump sum.
Yeah. As a non-business owner and non-QuickBooks expert, I think I would have fallen into the same rut, the same mistake. That's
Exactly.
where just like I've always appreciated finance and accounting. It's not something that I pursued, obviously, but it's so valuable when done right. But it is wild how maybe unintuitive sometimes, especially in the modern world of like, we're not just like, I remember as a kid watching my mom balance her checkbook and she just had a yellow highlighter and was just writing. And, I feel like maybe that manual effort maybe could have been a bit simpler, but then of course things get more complex with businesses and expenditures and AR and AP and all of these things. And I'm sure it is so easy for a small business owner to lose sight of these nuances of where you're putting things digitally. It's not even physically. It's still,
Like QuickBooks solved the problem of those hours-long reconciliations, but it opened up different problems and issues because business owners don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And that's where all of my trainings started. Is I started with small business training, where I was teaching a class, and this book that I have,
Hang on. It's called QuickBooks Online Bootcamp from Setup to Tax Time.
Yep. And this just came out on Amazon, but it's the newest edition of a book that's been out for 10 years. That this was the original handouts for the class that I taught.
Okay.
When it was live classes for business owners. And then I realized when I was teaching that class, the business owners were loving it, but I was like, and this is going back 10, I was like, okay, well, I'm teaching a class, but I can only teach to people in Portland available on this day who can get to this location. And then Zoom was invented, and we were actually early Zoom adopters. Royalwise started taking all those classes online, but the world didn't catch up with us. People were like, why would I do a class online? That doesn't make any sense. I want to be in person. And then we had COVID, right?
Yeah.
And then the first thing that Royalwise did when COVID happened is, because my husband, Jamie, does Apple training and most of his clients are seniors, he didn't want them to be isolated. And so one of the very first things we did was a free Zoom training where we invited everybody in the Royalwise community. And we had literally 85 people attend our first Zoom training. And their average age was actually like close to 85.
No
And
way.
they had never been on Zoom before. And so we had all these people going, is this thing on? Can they hear me? All at the same time. It was absolutely hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
And so we really made it a point to bring technology into people's lives in a way that keeps them connected. But that experience with Zoom, now that the world got used to Zooming, Royalwise just like started going through the roof, because
Wow.
now all of us, some people are like, oh yeah, I can take a class at that time, and just started joining.
So are you teaching small businesses and accountants?
Yeah. So because we started with small business, or I started with small business with QuickBooks, the rise of the internet, then social media is kind of what put me in front of bookkeepers. And so I started originally my audience was the small business owners, but
Right.
social media brought the bookkeepers flocking to us and the pro advisors. So now my classes are probably 90% bookkeepers and cast teams and 10% business owners, but we're like, we want the business owners back again. And so we want to make it clear to all of our participants that if you're a bookkeeper learning how to do this, you can absolutely send your clients to our classes too. That, some people love doing training. Some people love providing training as a service as part of their practice and part of their service menu. Others don't like it, don't want to do it, aren't good at it, hate answering the same questions over and over and over again. And that's where we come in. We partner with the cast practices and bookkeeping firms to train their clients.
Why? Okay, I heard someone recently say that they even don't want their clients to be in their own QuickBooks. So why would a firm, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Please.
Why would a firm want not just the opposite, but deepening understanding of QuickBooks?
Sure. Well, there's different styles of bookkeeping. And some bookkeeping is full service bookkeeping, where you are doing everything for the business. And either those bookkeepers are embedded as employees in the company, or that's the way the firm is, but the firm is full service with AR and AP services. But millions of small businesses don't even have a bookkeeper, or their bookkeeping is relegated to just bank feeds and reconciliations and reviewing every month or every quarter just to make sure everything's in the right bucket. But so many businesses still have to make their daily invoices because the bookkeeper doesn't know what anything's for and doesn't have the day-to-day of what's happening inside the business. So there's probably more DIY small businesses who need bookkeepers than there are small businesses who just want the accounting firm to take care of everything.
Right. So then how might a firm utilize you or include a training option to clients alongside the services that they might be offering of bookkeeping, accounting, and or advisory? Talk to me about why they would pair these things together, or how they play well together in their book of services.
Sure. One of the things we pride ourselves on is that we're incredibly flexible, that we can deliver content in whatever way is right for the firm. And so sometimes it's just, send people the link to the class. Sometimes it's joining our affiliate program and our partner program, and then you can pick the links and you just put your affiliate link at the end of it, and then you get a 10% revenue share for spreading the word about the classes. We also do customized portals where if you really want to lean into providing training as a service, as part of the benefits of working with your firm, we do custom branded portals where you give us your branding colors and your logos, and it's still powered by Royalwise. Once you get in, you still see our owls everywhere, but the basic color schemes are yours, and you can even have full control of assigning classes to the business owners, adding your own customized content, and you can even get creative with it. One of the things that I do is I actually make custom courses for each of my clients, and I record all of our sessions, and I put those recordings in those classes. So every single client has their own login with their own course, with their recordings of their own businesses. So like if I teach like, okay, let's go fix your sales tax and show you how to use it, they can go back and rewatch the video of their sales tax setting and watch the generic sales tax class as well.
Awesome. So you obviously identified a gap here in the market. We already said that with like the difference between what QuickBooks Intuit offers and their courses and what you're offering. Why is it dangerous that a business only get educated on content from Intuit and not on content like what you offer as well?
Well, as I said, the content from Intuit is really surface and generic, and it's not going to take into consideration unusual circumstances. It's not comprehensive enough to take into consideration even uncommon. They're teaching to the lowest denominator of here's the perfect way to do this one thing this one way. But if you have any variations, they're not going to be able to handle that in their training.
And what about just like leveling them up, leveling their employees up? Talk to me about how you feel like this helps or how it supplements networking and events and coaching and mentoring. Because I see an obvious element of this, right, is the real life applications of like you at Royalwise have interacted with countless businesses by now, right? And you've seen trends, you see common problems, and then you have recommended solutions. What role does this play too in conjunction with networking, mentoring, and just other means of advancement and education?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is that we're NASBA certified. And so you can get CPE for taking our courses. And like I said, any one course isn't just a 1 hour high level. It's usually a 3 hour deep dive. So it's really easy to get lots of CPE really quick. So first of all, it just checks that box. The other is that when you're networking, you're meeting people or if you're going to a conference, it's mostly soft skills. You're learning about firm development or personal development or soft skills. We're focused like a laser on software. And the idea and reason for that is that with QuickBooks, between all the changes and the constant changes in the software and the fact that when you get into a routine, you forget to look around and see all the other features. And so a lot of the time QuickBooks does things that you had no idea that it can do. So we really focus like a laser on like every single little detail of the software, but with a goal. The goal is to make you efficient, that if you spend 3 hours in my bank feeds class, you are going to just rail through doing the bank feeds for your clients. You're going to learn efficiency strategies and shortcuts and rules and automations that are going to shave your time down. So taking 1 3 hour bank feeds class, you're going to save literally 25, 30 hours, maybe a year, if not more. And so my whole goal is to make you as efficient as possible.
Yeah. I've heard a stat, I'm pulling this out of my brain and I don't have a source for it, but that we roughly use about 10% of the software that we are purchasing, and that 90% of the functionality is left there collecting dust, to your point about finding ways to become more efficient. It's not uncommon that we as humans have bought something that we are not fully utilizing.
Right. And there's the utilization, and there's also just the strategies that you don't know are there. So like here's an Easter egg in QuickBooks that you don't know is there. When you're in the date field, you can type the letter T and it will take you to today.
Just like hotkey stuff like that.
Yeah, hotkey stuff like that. Or if you're typing in a date, so here we are, we're recording this in December, and if I wanted to put in December 21st, I can just type 21. And it'll put in the 12 and it'll put in the 2025. So there's that's the kind of thing that you get out of my classes.
Yeah.
And then the utilization piece of it, because QuickBooks is always under constant rapid development, you may have been turning to third-party software for things that QuickBooks didn't used to do, but now it does do it, and maybe you don't need that third-party app anymore.
Yeah. So you're fairly educated on the ecosystem of softwares that might surround QuickBooks as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's constantly evolving, right? I mean, my world is SaaS, and I see new vendors popping up all the time, which is fun and wild, but yeah, it presents challenges.
Yeah. One of the things that I just recently started doing was bringing in app sponsors into my longer classes, my more deep dive classes. So for example, I just did 2 3-hour sessions on reporting in QBO. So last Monday was running reports in QuickBooks. And so it was the basics of how to use the reporting and how to read reports. And then the second one was the deep dive into all the customization and pivot tables and grouping and filtering and creating custom reports. But still, there's things that QuickBooks can't do for reporting. So I actually brought in one of the apps that I work with as a sponsor, and they did a live demo at the end of the class. So
Nice.
my idea moving into the next year is here's all the things that QuickBooks does, and here's a focus on something that QuickBooks doesn't do, and here's a possible solution.
Okay, so that made me think of advisory, especially with your example of reports. How do you feel like a deeper understanding of QuickBooks and maybe the appropriate third-party solutions where you might recommend will help level up a firm to make the leap to CAS or to deepen their expertise, confidence in offering CAS? And I know offering CAS, I mean, like CAS is a service and line item. It's not, but I'm oversimplifying.
Sure. Well, that really points to the shift in the industry that I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've been speaking at QuickBooks Connect or Intuit Connect now since 2015. And back in 2015, QuickBooks Connect was all about let's teach you how to use QuickBooks, and it was all day certification training. Then after a few years of that, they moved into advisory. Let's lift you up as a pro advisor and upgrade your skills so that it's not just using the software, it's doing advisory. And then in the last 5 years, all the talk has been about CAS and CAS teams and moving CAS into the tax space. And along the way, that does mean that people who used to think of themselves as quote unquote bookkeepers now need to think of themselves as pro advisors and move into advisory. But other than learning how to read a report, you didn't really have any tools to do any advising.
Yeah.
And, like you can run a P&L, but unless you know to spread it out by percentage of column, percentage of row, percentage of income, and percentage of expense, you had no way of actually doing any advisory. So that's what I started teaching in that advanced reporting class that I just did. Like, how do you actually now take a P&L and be able to figure out what's happening in it?
So do you feel like a bookkeeper or an accountant who is servicing a myriad of individuals or businesses, do they need to be focused on a handful of industries to be able to offer a level of advisory services, which I encourage, and I will always encourage. But the way you said that made it almost sound like, too, like there's another way to go about it with your existing client base. If you're not ready or you haven't made the pivot, or if you didn't start with an industry, there's still functionality within QuickBooks that would enable you to instantly hop up a rung or two on the advisory ladder with your current client base.
Yeah. So there's two pieces of that I want to break down. The first is that with the advisory piece, that's where Intuit's leaning in with the new AI tools. Is that the AI is now just taking the data and is now surfacing conclusions that you can come to out of that data. And so I encourage any bookkeeper who doesn't know how to do advisory to start taking a look at the new performance indicators and the KPI boards in QuickBooks Online Advanced, or the new anomaly detection in the regular reports, or the business feed. It's now beginning to surface information that you can use to talk about what's happening in the day-to-day, which wasn't information that we had any access to, that now you can have a reasonable conversation without actually working in the business now, just by looking at the reports. So that's one piece of it. And then what you were just saying about niches, that they say the riches is in the niches, and you do really well for yourself by picking an industry that you resonate with, that maybe you have some history with or a passion for, because then you become a real insider on knowing the nuances of that particular business. But I posit that a niche does not have to be industry. A niche can also be a style. A niche, you can niche in therapists or in mom and pop shops or in
size of revenue.
Right. By revenue, by number of employees, by sole proprietor, because they have their own struggles and they have their own opportunities. And once you know how, like, for a while, I was getting tons and tons of clients who were all Russian mom and pop construction, where the guy was going out and making glass doors for showers or railings or like specialty work, and the wife was keeping the books. And for about 3 years, they had like all of them had just like, okay,
Found
we're going
you.
to work with Alicia. And so I set them all up. And so I actually became a specialist in even knowing what's going to happen with their church tithing, that they're running through the books, because there it is again, because they're all doing it. And so there is something to be said for your niche being the style of business or the
Yes.
level of business, not just the function of the business.
I am glad you called that out, because I think it is really easy to think about it in terms of industry, but you can think of it in terms of category, like you said, with therapists, or maybe even like milestones, like some big milestones in tech are like moving from 10 million ARR to 100 million ARR, and you could specialize in that stage of a company's growth or something,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Which again still helps you deepen that expertise. But love it. Good call out. As we wrap up, I want to ask you a couple rapid fire questions.
Okay, shoot.
What is the most underrated skill for accountants today?
The most underrated skill for accountants today I'm always going to say, attention to detail.
Uh, think of your future self.
Yeah. That due diligence for yourself, much less
Mhm.
review of other people's or having your own work reviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Education, experience. How do they intertwine, work together? Where do you recommend, or where do you see like one matters more, or is that not even the
Right.
case? Am I like
Well,
spreading a
I
myth?
used to say imagination is more important than knowledge.
Ooh,
And I can't answer this one in a rapid fire because,
fair,
like,
fair.
what I do is I help people with real life hands-on training. Like, I have
Mhm.
one of the things that we didn't even talk about is the fact that Royalwise has a community membership and a coaching membership. And so as the community members get automatic enrollment into all of the classes and members meetings every single month, where people ask me questions. So instead of me providing the information, people are like, okay, I'm having this situation with this client, and everybody's learning from their experiences. And I used to think that that was just kind of like a throwaway add on to the program. And people are telling me that those meetings are actually the most valuable piece of it. And then my coaching program is the hands on part, where we meet
Mm,
every single month for an hour, and people bring their books to me and like, well, what do I do in this situation? And what do I do in this situation? And I do every summer a hands-on training based on that giant textbook that I do. And that is a hands-on course where you're actually building company files from scratch and having to actually do the work. So it's one thing to listen to me fire hose information at you, and you can go back and rewatch the video later on when you need that piece, but it's something else completely different to have your hands on in the books.
yeah.
So I try and include that hands-on option in as many places as I
Yeah. It's
can.
not an either or, it's a yes and.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, thank you, Alicia. This was a delight.
Well, thank you very much. I love talking to you.